I, 28F, have always been a fixer. The eldest of four, I practically raised my younger siblings while my mum worked 2 jobs and my dad disappeared into the bottle. I became the built-in babysitter, cook, counselor, teacher, whatever they needed. I delivered. It was hard, yes, but I wore that responsibility like armor. I believed that if I kept everything running smoothly, maybe the chaos around us wouldn't consume us. But being a fixer also made me blind to my own needs, to boundaries, and most fatally, to the rot growing quietly within my family. That blindness reached a breaking point last month when I cut ties with my sister Jessie, 24F, after a betrayal so enormous, so calculated, it split our family down the middle and made me question everything I ever sacrificed for her. Now, half my relatives are calling me the a-hole for giving up on her after one mistake. But to me it wasn't one mistake. It was a lifetime of entitlement, weaponized love, and manipulation that finally boiled over. Jessie was always the golden child. Not in the conventional sense, she wasn't the smartest or the most responsible, but people liked her. She had this effortless charisma, this way of charming people into doing things for her. Teachers forgave her missed homework. Neighbors gave her free babysitting. Boys fell over themselves to help her carry groceries. My mum, worn down from exhaustion, let it slide when Jessie lied or broke rules. "She's just spirited," she'd say. Meanwhile, I got detention if I snapped back or failed to fold the laundry correctly. I didn't resent Jessie exactly. I just knew that we played different roles. She got saved. I did the saving. In high school, Jessie started getting into trouble. Shoplifting, drinking, sneaking out with older guys. I tried to intervene, of course. I'd lecture her, threaten to tell Mom, even follow her to parties and drag her home. Sometimes she'd cry and apologize, swearing she'd change. Other times she'd scream that I was ruining her life. Through it all, I kept cleaning up the mess. I'd drive her home drunk, cover for her when she missed school, even pay for her stolen makeup when she got caught. I did it because I loved her, because I thought that's what big sisters did. When I went to college on scholarship, Jessie spiraled. My mum called me crying when Jessie totaled our family's only car while high on Xanax and weed. I dropped out for a semester to come home and help. I took a job at a local bookstore, cleaned up her mess, attended her court hearings, and paid off the fines with the little savings I had. Jessie swore it was a wake-up call. For a while it seemed true. She got a job at a local salon, started therapy, even talked about going to community college. I went back to school, finished my degree, and got a job in publishing in another city. I thought maybe we'd made it through the storm. Flash forward to a year ago. I'd just gotten engaged to my partner, Lena, 30F, the love of my life. We'd been together 3 years, and she grounded me in a way no one else ever had. She loved my family but was especially cautious around Jessie. "She's magnetic," Lena once said, "but it's like she's always calculating something behind her smile." I dismissed it. "Jessie's complicated," I said. "She's been through a lot." Lena let it go, but she kept her distance. Then Jessie hit a rough patch. Her boyfriend dumped her. She lost her apartment and she called me sobbing one night, saying she had nowhere to go. Lena and I had just bought a house with a finished basement and a spare guest room. I didn't even hesitate. "Come stay with us," I said. "We'll figure it out." Lena was hesitant, but she supported me. Jessie moved in the next week. At first it went well. She was helpful around the house, bonded with our dog, and even got a part-time job. But slowly, cracks began to form. She started borrowing clothes from both of us without asking, left dishes piled in the sink, and frequently forgot to pay for her share of utilities or groceries. She'd flirt with Lena playfully, nothing overt, just teasing comments, like me, "Wow, you clean up nice," or "I don't know how my sister got someone like you." Lena told me it made her uncomfortable, but I brushed it off. "That's just Jessie," I said. "She doesn't mean anything by it." Then things got weird. I began noticing little changes in Lena. She started coming home late. She was guarded with her phone. Our intimacy dropped. When I asked her about it, she said work was stressful, that she was just tired. I believed her. Why wouldn't I? We were planning our wedding. I was designing invitations. We had a date booked and deposits made. Everything was fine until it wasn't. I came home one afternoon to grab my laptop and overheard voices in the basement. Jesse and Lena, laughing, talking in low tones. I crept down the stairs, heart pounding, and froze when I heard Jesse say, "She doesn't see it. She never has. You deserve someone who understands you." Lena murmured something I couldn't make out. I backed away before they saw me and left the house in a daze. That night I confronted Lena. She denied everything. "We were just talking," she said. "You're being paranoid." I wanted to believe her. I needed to believe her. So I did. I apologized. I let it go. 2 weeks later, my world imploded. I came home early from work, opened the bedroom door, and found them together, in my bed. Jesse had the audacity to smile. Lena just stared at me like a deer in headlights. I turned around and walked out of the house. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just left. Over the next few days, everything unraveled. Lena tried to call to explain. "It was a mistake," she said. "It just happened once." But I knew better. I checked her phone records. It had been going on for months. While I'd been planning our wedding, she'd been screwing my sister. In my house, under my roof. Jessie didn't even apologize. She texted me 2 days later. "I didn't mean to hurt you. I just couldn't help how I felt. You always had everything. For once, I wanted something for myself." That text destroyed me. I blocked them both. I canceled the wedding. I quit my job, packed my things, and moved out of state to stay with a friend. My family blew up. My mom begged me to forgive Jessie. "She's your sister," she said. "She made a mistake." My brother called me cold and vindictive. My aunt asked if I was really going to throw away a lifetime of sisterhood over some girl. But it wasn't some girl, it was my fiancée. It was my sister. It was every sacrifice I ever made thrown back in my face. Jessie didn't just sleep with Lena. She stole from me. She gaslit me. She manipulated my trust, exploited my love, and destroyed my family. And people still want me to make it right. Now I'm being told I should come home for Easter, that I should be the bigger person, that family is everything. But I don't think I can. I don't think I should. I've spent my entire life being the fixer, the peacekeeper, the one who absorbs the damage so others don't have to suffer. But I'm done bleeding for people who wouldn't bandage a single one of my wounds. So, Reddit, am I the a-hole for cutting off my sister forever after she slept with my fiancé, knowing it would shatter our family? Or have I finally set a boundary that was long overdue? I, 37F, have always thought of my family as my first responsibility, which is why when my younger brother Nick, 32M, told me last November that his chronic kidney disease had finally progressed to end-stage renal failure, I didn't hesitate. I volunteered to be his living donor. My husband, Derek, 38M, is a management consultant whose travel schedule is brutal, but he usually drops everything for emergencies, so I assumed he'd support me. What I didn't expect was how fiercely he'd dig in his heels once he realized how much my donation would upend our lives. The diagnosis and decision Nick was diagnosed 5 years ago and has been on the transplant waiting list for over 3. But every eligible kidney goes to a pediatric patient or someone with more urgent need. In the spring, his eGFR plunged into the teens, and by November, his nephrologist told him he needed to start dialysis immediately or he'd risk complications. When he called me crying, describing the needles, the fatigue, the months of treatment, ahead I broke down too and then steeled myself. "I've already been tested," I told him. "My blood type matches. I want to donate." He tried to refuse. "You have a career, a family. I've got vacation time saved." "We'll figure it out," I said. I spoke to my boss at the design agency where I'm a senior art director. She was deeply moved and approved my 6-week medical leave without hesitation. My parents, both retired nurses, offered to help with recovery. I scheduled the donor evaluation in early December, flew home for tests, and by Christmas had surgical dates. Nick would receive my kidney on January 20th. Everything seemed lined up, except for Derek. Derek's reaction I broke the news over dinner on New Year's Eve. I had pulled my living donor pamphlets off the coffee table and set them by my plate. "Derek," I began, "my surgery's January 18th. I'll be out of commission for a month." He looked up from his steak, fork paused mid-air. "Out of commission?" "Hospital stay is 5 days," I said. "Then 4 weeks of recovery. You know, no heavy lifting, limited driving. How are we supposed to manage Lily's 6F, school drop-offs, bedtime routine, get groceries?" He set down his fork. "I'm already traveling 3 days a week. I've talked to my parents. They're free," I said. "Plus Mandy and Josh from next door will check in. We'll hire a temporary nanny for 2 mornings. He rubbed his forehead. "You made all these plans without talking to me." "I thought you'd be glad," I said softly. "It's my brother." His jaw tightened. "I know it's your brother, but I can't just run our life without you." "And what about my promotion review in February? I need your support on that." The tension builds over the next 3 weeks. Every conversation about surgery turned into an argument. I was doing medical tests 2 days each week, so household items got neglected. Laundry piled up, the dog chewed a shoe, I missed paying a credit card bill. Derek griped, "You're never home. I'm the only one loading the dishwasher." I reminded him my parents were taking over in mid-January. He snapped, "They're retired in Florida half the year. Can you really depend on them?" I was packing my hospital bag when he cornered me in the bedroom. "What if you don't wake up? Have you thought about life insurance? What about Lily? Who will pick her up if something goes wrong?" His eyes were frantic. "I'm healthy," I said. "Risk of donor death is less than 1 in 3,000. I've done every test." He ran a hand through his hair. "I can't lose you." "You won't," I said. "And after I pass all the evaluations, their transplant team will oversee everything." He sighed, then turned away. "I'm sorry. I'm just scared." Surgery and recovery. I checked into the hospital January 18th. Derek flew in that morning. He'd cancelled a client workshop and held my hand through pre-op. Post-surgery. I woke up dizzy, a Foley catheter in place, nausea swirling. I remember seeing Derek's masked face and bursting into tears. He kept vigil for 2 nights, dozing in the visitor chair. Lily's daycare, sensing both parents were under strain, let her stay extra hours. The first week at home was a blur. I couldn't drive, couldn't lift more than 10 pounds, and needed daily walks to keep my remaining kidney healthy. My parents took over morning routines. Mandy came afternoons. Derek cut back his trips by a day. I was surprised and grateful until the 2nd week, when he'd come home late from a client dinner, ignore my medical alerts on the fridge, no, bending to retrieve anything, and slump onto the couch. "I can't do this," he said one evening, voice flat. "I spent today juggling your conference calls, Lily's school pickup, paying bills while you lounged on the couch. Do you realize I made a life out of thin air?" I flinched. "I'm recovering. I can't help it." He stood up. "Why did you do this now? Couldn't you have waited until Lily was older?" I felt anger flare. What was I supposed to do? Let my brother die on dialysis? Kick him off the list because it's inconvenient? He shook his head. I feel like you chose him over our family." I turned away. "I'm trying to save his life." The breaking point by week 3, I could finally drive but still wasn't cleared to lift anything heavier than a gallon of milk. Derek had gone back to full travel, 3 days in Chicago, 2 in New York. I was alone as he left most mornings. Lily would ask, "Why isn't Daddy here?" And I'd choke out a half smile. "He's at work, sweetie." On January 31st, Derek came home furious. I was unloading groceries, cabbage and apples mostly, because heavy lifting was still off limits. "It's my anniversary," he said, dropping his suitcase. "Do you know that?" I froze. 2 months ago, I'd booked a medical leave trip for surgery. Our anniversary slipped my mind. He flung his coat on the floor. "I rearranged an all-day strategy session for you. We could have had a nice dinner. But instead you were in the OR. I closed my eyes. "I'm sorry I forgot," he sneered. "Forgot? You forgot the day that's supposed to mean everything to us." Tears stung. "I didn't mean to. Please don't make me out to be a monster for saving my brother." He cut me off. "I'm not here to criticize your brother. I'm here to criticize you, your priorities. Every time you give to him, it takes away from me and Lily. His words felt like a final blow. I turned and left the room, heading to the nursery to read Lily a bedtime story. He didn't follow. Picking up the pieces. The next morning, Derek looked distant. He dropped Lily at school, barely said goodbye, and flew off to another client. I sat on the front porch and called my parents. "Mom, I'm falling apart," I whispered. She reminded me, "You made the right choice, but marriages need care. Maybe talk it out with Derek when you're strong." I agreed, but in the back of my mind I questioned, had I gone too far? So, Reddit, ate her for donating a kidney to my brother right now, knowing my husband would have to run our household alone and might jeopardize his career milestone. Should I have waited until a less critical time, or was it fair to expect him to carry the load so I could save a life? I, 35F, run a small non-profit that rehabilitates rescued farm animals, and my husband Ben, 37M, is an investment banker whose hours have only grown in the past year. In January, my younger brother, Aiden, 30M, was diagnosed with a rare autoimmune disorder that flares unpredictably. Sometimes he can barely leave the house, other times he's fine. When I heard how severe his latest flare was, I immediately booked a flight to our hometown 2 states over and told Ben I needed a week off to help my parents care for him. What I didn't expect was that my absence and my brother's illness would trigger a fight so bad I'm questioning whether I'm the a-hole. How it started, I grew up the responsible one. My parents built a veterinary clinic out in rural Ohio. My brother Aiden, an artistic soul, struggled to find his footing, bouncing between odd jobs. When he started feeling fatigued and developing strange rashes last fall, the doctors shrugged. It offers stress. But in December he collapsed at work and landed in the ER with dangerously low platelets. The specialist called it immune thrombocytopenic purpura, a condition they could manage, but it required daily monitoring, constant lab draws, and frequent hospital stays when it spiked. By mid-January, Aiden was back in the hospital yet again. My mother, Carol, 62F, was juggling daycare drop-off, my dad's part-time coaching with the local Little League, and endless phone calls with insurance. My sister, Jessa, 28F, teaches 3rd grade and couldn't get more than a day off without losing sub-plans. So I messaged Ben, I need to fly to Ohio tomorrow and stay a week or more. Aiden's platelets crash overnight. Mum's at the end of her rope. Ben, again? He was literally in the ER 2 weeks ago. I know, but they don't trust him to manage it without me. He needs family here. Ben, my bonuses come through next week. The associate director wants me to pitch Friday. You're sure they need you that badly? Yes, they do. He sighed but booked me a refundable ticket. He kissed me goodbye. At the airport, borderline irritated but willing, at least on the surface. Week 1 in Ohio I arrived late Tuesday night. When Mum and Dad saw me in the clinic hallway, they burst into tears. My brother managed a weak grin. "Hey, sis." Over. The next few days we cranked through labs, adjusted meds, and held Aiden's hand through transfusion after transfusion. I cooked Mom's favorite chicken soup, printed out his monthly medical calendar, and coordinated with a nearby friend to drive him to testing when I had to be at work on Zoom. Meanwhile, Ben texted around noon each day. "How's he doing? Do you need me to call? My pitch deck's vetting my input right now." By Thursday, I was exhausted. My heart raced every time the phone buzzed from the hospital tech. But I also felt that surge of purpose. This was exactly why I'd chosen to leave a corporate job for non-profit life, to be free to step up when family needed me. On Saturday, Aiden woke in a full flare. Platelets down to 8. Platelets need to be above 20 or risk internal bleeding. My parents both had volunteer commitments, Dad's league playoffs, Mom's church bake sale. I spent all day in the clinic, pacing outside his room, whispering encouragement, consoling him when he cried, "I'm sorry this keeps happening, bro. We're gonna get you stable." I FaceTimed Ben at midnight, voice cracking. He said, "Promise. You'll come back Sunday. I can't have you off longer than that." I sniffed. "I'll stay as long as it takes." The turning point on Monday morning, I walked into Aiden's hospital room carrying coffee and toast. He looked pale but smiled. "You're here," he whispered. I took his hand. We'd just gotten word that his platelets were back up to safe levels. Relief flooded me. I pulled out my phone to check work emails, only to see 15 unread messages from Ben. "Why are you still there?" "My boss is losing patience." "Do you even care about my career?" "Clients asked, where you are, they want me to intervene. I bought your favorite tea at that shop on Madison. Text me if you want me to bring some." I stared at number 3 and my chest tightened. I shot him a text. "Come help me here and I'll fly back tomorrow." An hour later, I was scrolling my inbox again. 8 more messages from him. 2 missed calls, a WhatsApp and a passive-aggressive GIF. A cartoon spouse dragging a suitcase with the caption, "I can't wait to be done with this." I snapped. I opened a new text. "You're treating my family's crisis like a chore you resent. I'm not coming home until Aiden is out of danger." I hit send before I could second-guess it. The fallout, by Monday evening, I was back at the rental car terminal, heading home. Aiden's counts were stable and the team planned to discharge him Tuesday afternoon. I called Ben before boarding. "I'm coming back tonight, he's good." He answered on the 3rd ring, voice cold. "About time." When I walked in the door at 11 p.m., the kitchen was dark except for my mug of tea on the counter. He was on the couch in sweats, eyes red. I leaned forward, eyes bright. "Hey, I'm home." He didn't move. I reached out, but he slapped my hand away. "Don't." My heart thudded. "What's wrong?" He stared at the ceiling. "You missed." My pitch. I spent the whole meeting defending why I wasn't married to a ghost. My stomach lurched. "Ben, I had to be there." He turned to me, eyes blazing. "You chose your brother's illness over my career. I picked up our slack, got dinners, daycare, walked the dog, all of it. And you disappeared." His words felt like knives. "I came back as soon as I could, and he's almost out of the hospital," he scoffed. "Almost. Meanwhile, I lost credibility. My director's pissed." I sank into the couch beside him. "I'm sorry you had to cover, but you knew what I was walking into." He folded his arms. "I knew, yeah, and it pissed me off. I didn't ask to be a single dad for a week. The confrontation over the next 2 nights, we argued in circles. Me, family emergencies happen. You wouldn't be here if it were your sibling." Ben, "My sister's in Australia. If she needed me, I'd be on the first flight too." Me, "Then maybe you would, but you didn't." Ben, "Because I have responsibilities here. We share a life. When you vanish, it's me left holding it together." Me, "I left so Mum and Dad could do their jobs. You'd resent them too, if they dropped everything." Ben, "No, because they didn't. I did." He yelled that he felt unappreciated, that his achievements were constantly second-rate to my family rescues. I cried that he'd call my volunteer work second-rate, when we both knew the non-profit was my passion. We both said things we regretted. Aftermath. Where do we go from here? Now it's Thursday. Aiden is home on bed rest. Our parents are managing, and the dog greeted me at the door without incident. But Ben and I haven't spoken more than good morning and good night. I'm still furious he belittled my choice to help my brother. He's still stung that I left him to shoulder everything. I offered couples therapy. He said he'd think about it. I offered to hire a housekeeper to thank him for covering. He said that's not the point. He texted, "I need you here. When will I matter more than emergencies?" I haven't answered, so read it. IT for staying an extra week to help my brother with his life-threatening illness, knowing it meant my husband would juggle our entire household and could lose career traction? Should I have cut my trip short, left my brother in less secure hands to protect Ben's professional reputation? Or was it fair to expect him to step up even if it meant sacrifices on his end? I, 35F, work as a senior project manager at a boutique architecture firm, and my husband, Kyle, 37M, is a freelance photographer whose career is just beginning to take off. When Kyle landed a coveted month-long contract shooting a travel brand's European campaign, complete airfare, accommodations, and a day rate triple his usual fee, it felt like a dream come true for both of us. His career would get a huge boost, and our finances would get a healthy cushion. There was just one catch. The trip was scheduled for mid-July, which overlapped with our daughter Nora's first week at summer camp and my busiest season at work, when I'd committed to delivering 3 major presentations to clients. I'll rewind to how we got here. January-April. Dreams and deadlines. When Kyle first told me about the gig in January, we were ecstatic. He'd been hustling for months, chasing leads, updating his portfolio, shooting local weddings, and teaching weekend photo workshops, and this contract from Wanderlust & Co. was the break he'd been chasing. He'd proposed July 10th to August 10th. I congratulated him and said, "Let's plan for it. Just tell me your exact dates once you have them." At the office, however, I was knee-deep in a multi-million-dollar redevelopment proposal for a historic waterfront district. My team, and I had been working since November. Our deadline to present to the City Council was July 15th. That meant I needed at least 2 weeks of prep time without distractions, final design renderings signed off by consultants, and the big pitch deck polished to perfection. I juggled dozens of sketches, budget revisions, and stakeholder meetings. In March, we visited Nora's school and registered her for 2 weeks of summer camp, Week A, July 8th to 12, and Week B, July 15th, 19. We agreed to send her to Week A so she'd settle in before the camp's big Explorer Day performance. It was important she make friends early. I blocked off that week on my calendar to handle drop-off and pick-up, since Kyle's travel was still a few months out. May, the conflict emerges in early May. Wanderlust & Co. sent Kyle the formal contract. Shoot dates July 5th, 30, with a mandatory pre-trip briefing in New York on July 4th. He beamed, "I'm going a week earlier than expected." I congratulated him, told him to send me his flight, itinerary, and mentally shifted my camp pickup duties onto my in-laws for the first few days. After all, they'd already agreed to help cover that week if Kyle's trip conflicted. But then it clicked. If he left July 5th, he'd miss Nora's. July 8th, first day of camp entirely, and much of my prep for the July 15th pitch. He'd be halfway across Europe while I was trying to close out our proposal, and we'd have no backup for morning drop-offs, including the mandatory parent orientation session on July 9th. When I raised this to Kyle, gently, I thought, he waved it off. "That session is just paperwork and a tour. Our parents can do it. My contract is non-negotiable." I reminded him we'd promised Nora we'd both be there for her first day. He sighed. "We've been through this. You've got your big pitch. I'll find a way to catch the afternoon demo drop-in. Trust me." I felt uneasy. Relying on grandparents felt convenient, but they'd retired to Florida for part of the summer and only returned July 10th. I pointed that out. "Our parents aren't here until the 10th. Who covers July 8th and 9? He grunted. "We'll figure it out. Maybe your sister can drive over." My sister lives 3 hours away. Her own schedule was packed. June. Tensions rise. By mid-June, my workload intensified. Final site surveys, last-minute client feedback, municipal permit revisions. I asked Kyle again, "Can you adjust your flights by a couple of days? Even one. Extra day in New York for the briefing, and then home for camp would help." He looked at me like I'd asked him to give up his career. "I can't. They gave me a firm window to be on location." I reminded him that our family obligations mattered too. He countered, "I booked hotels non-refundable on April rates. Rebooking now will cost thousands extra. They'll dock me if I miss briefing days." Aside from work contractual issues, I began to sense that he truly believed his career leap justified leaving me to handle everything solo. I tried to remain supportive, reviewing his shot list at night, helping prep his travel gear, but inside I was furious that he dismissed my equally important work and our shared parental duties. The week before departure. The week of June 28th, Nora and I attended a camp orientation in the evening. Kyle was home but barely acknowledged it. He was locked in his home office editing sample photos for the agency. We walked into the classroom, dozens of other families chatting nervously, counselors pointing out activity stations. At one point, Mrs. Hernandez, the camp director, said, "Don't forget, one parent must attend the mandatory immunization check on July 9th at 9 a.m., or your child can't participate. I shot a glance at Kyle. He peered back, looked at his watch and muttered, "Nope." That moment crystallized it. He was counting me on to handle it alone. I went home that night feeling resentful. Departure day, July 4 on. July 4th, we drove Kyle to the airport after a rushed barbecue breakfast. Nora hugged him hard. I whispered, "Please be there for her on Wednesday. It's her first day." He kissed her forehead, waved at me, and disappeared through security. As we watched his plane take off, I felt an ache of abandonment. I told my parents about the immunization check and camp tour. They promised to drive up from Florida July 8th on short notice. They'd fly in July 7th and rent a car, expensive, but they insisted it was fine. I returned to the office and spent July 5 to 14 working 18-hour days, fueled by cold coffee and takeout. I drafted the final slide deck, rehearsed my 30-minute pitch speech, coordinated with engineers on site, and juggled parent emails about camp drop-off. My phone pinged with confirmations. Mom and Dad's flight okay. Camp immunization. Docs ready. Nora excited. But every text chipped away at my stamina. The pitch, July 15th. On the morning of July 15th, I arrived at City Hall dressed in my best suit, armed with printed blueprints and bound presentation books. The City Council chamber was packed, elected officials, developers, press. I took a deep breath and launched into our vision for reclaiming the waterfront, mixing heritage preservation with green design. About 15 minutes in, my phone vibrated in my pocket. "Your daughter needs you," camp manager online. I excused myself silently, stepped into the hallway and answered. "Mrs. Carpenter," said the stern voice of Ms. Jenkins, camp director. "I'm sorry, but Nora is in the infirmary with a fever and rash. We need you to pick her up immediately." My heart sank. "How high is her fever?" I begged details. "She's at 102 degrees so, and complaining of chills." I swallowed bile. "I'm in the middle of my pitch to the council. Can you watch her for another hour?" She hesitated. "Honestly, no. Health policy says we need a parent within the hour to pick up." I slammed the phone shut and re-entered the chamber, face pale. The mayor paused mid-question. "Ms. Carpenter." "Are you, sir?" I stammered. "I'm sorry, I have a family emergency." I clicked off my slide remote and bolted out, leaving 14 city council members and 24 developers blinking after me. Fallout, I spent the rest of the day in the pediatric clinic, flu protocol, labs, cold compresses, until Nora was cleared to go home. By the time I got back to the office late that evening, I found 4 messages from Kyle. "How is Nora? Did the pitch go well? Feel free to vent. I'm free next week if you want to celebrate." I tried to call him, but his voicemail was full. I texted, "I had to leave the pitch. Nora had a high fever and rash. Mom and Dad helped." He responded 2 hours later. "So you blew your pitch? Ugh, that was your big moment." I stared at the screen, stunned, rebuilding, or not. Over the next week, my state of mind swung between anger and self-doubt. My colleagues and boss were outraged on my behalf. No one blames a parent for leaving a feverish child. The council meeting was rescheduled for August, and I'll lead it then. But I felt hollow. I'd sacrificed my dream pitch to save my daughter, only to have my husband criticize me for failing professionally. When Kyle flew home July 31st, I greeted him at the airport. He looked as though he'd had an amazing trip, beautiful beaches, stunning architecture, glowing client feedback. He waved off my concerns. "I'm sorry Nora got sick, but you knew the risk. Next time you'll plan better." I shot back. "Plan better? I had to choose between my work and my kid." He shrugged. "Your work loses if you choose family first." He paused. "I don't get how you can put a few months' job over your family's needs." Those words stung more than any client rejection. I love Kyle's ambition, and I'm proud of his success, but I wonder if he truly supports my career and respects my role as a mother. I feel torn. I can't imagine punting my daughter to the grandparents or refusing the world-changing waterfront project just to please him. But he clearly resents my choice, and I distrust that he'd ever step in when I need him most. So Reddit, hired for leaving my major architectural pitch to pick up my sick daughter, even though it cost me the presentation, and for expecting my husband to understand that family comes before work. Should I have deferred Nora's camp or asked my boss for a different schedule to avoid the emergency conflict? Or is it unreasonable for Kyle to criticize my decision to prioritize our child over my career ambition? I, 34F, have always believed that family comes first. So when my younger sister Hannah, 29F, was left suddenly homeless after a bad breakup 3 months ago, I didn't hesitate. I offered her our guest room for a few weeks, promising her the time and space she needed to get back on her feet. What I didn't expect was how that decision would unravel my marriage, strain my career, and make me question whether I was the one in the wrong. A little background: my husband, Mark, 36M, and I own a small graphic design studio together. Business is good, but we're constantly juggling clients, deadlines, and bills. We live in a modest 3-bedroom townhouse in a suburb of Chicago. In normal times, life is busy but manageable. Then Hannah's ex threw her out with 2 suitcases and a mutt of a dog named Leo, and suddenly our few weeks stretched into finals, tax season, and multiple emergencies. Month 1. Hospitality and gratitude. When she first arrived, I spent my evenings cooking her favorite meals: mac and cheese from scratch, turkey chili loaded with avocado, and weekends helping her sift through job boards, update resumes, and interview. Leo, a good-natured but shedding machine, curled up at my feet while we worked on LinkedIn. I was proud of how quickly she landed a part-time job at a local cafe. Mark was supportive initially. He'd rub Leo's ears, make me coffee when I pulled all-nighters revising client proofs, and tell Hannah, "You're one of the hardest working people I know." He even installed a cheap dog flap for Leo so I wouldn't have to keep opening the door 10 times a day. I thought, this is what marriage is: teamwork. Month 2. Cracks begin to show by month 2. My work and home life started to blur. Our kitchen counter was perpetually cluttered with dog toys and Hannah's notebooks. The guest room became a dumping ground for her laundry. She refused to go on job interviews in my car because she didn't want to impose, so I'd drive her around on Saturdays, missing my own catch-up calls with clients. Meanwhile, Mark's workload spiked. He took on a big rebranding project, driving him into late nights at the office. Instead of unwinding together, I'd come home after my own 13-hour day and find him hunched over his laptop at the dining table. Our conversations dwindled to, "How was your day?" "Rough." "Dinner's in the fridge." "Thanks." I tried to pick up the slack, ordering takeout so I could focus on Hannah's new apartment hunt, but inside I was stretched thin. One Thursday night, I walked in to find Mark swearing at the screen. "That client's a nightmare," he growled. I hugged him, but he flinched. "I don't want hugs right now," he snapped. I recoiled, heart pounding. "Okay, want me to put dinner in the microwave?" He soft-pedaled. "I'm sorry, I'm just stressed." I nodded, but later that night I cried quietly in the guest room hallway, wondering if I'd been a bad wife. Month 3. The tipping point in month 3. Hannah finally found her own apartment. Hurrah! But moving day turned into a fiasco. Her truck broke down. So I spent my Saturday plugging in jumper cables, cajoling tow truck drivers, and supervising movers while Mark waited at home. I didn't arrive until 8 p.m., sweaty and exhausted, to discover a frantic voicemail from him. Our internet was down and he'd spent hours on the phone with tech support. "Our whole presentation is tomorrow," he pleaded. I rushed home, cancelled plans to take Leo out. Hannah was with her new roommate, and spent 2 hours rebooting routers. He barely looked at me when I hung up. "Thanks," he muttered. That weekend, he took his frustration out on me. We argued about smaller things: me hogging the couch when I graded Hannah's portfolio drafts, me babying Leo when he chewed the edge of our coffee table, me prioritizing my sister over my marriage. I defended myself. "I was helping my sister get back on her feet. You said you understood." He threw up his hands. "I get it, until you leave me hanging to do everything myself." I snapped back. "I've never expected you to carry everything solo." We went to bed angry, both of us scrolling our phones in silence until sleep took us. The big blow-up last Friday was the final straw. Mark and I had a long-planned marketing pitch for a regional museum, one that could double our annual revenue. We'd been working on it for weeks and agreed to stay late together to finalize the deck. At 3 p.m. I got a panicked text from Hannah. Her roommate was moving out unexpectedly, and she needed help clearing out trash and getting the new lease. Signed by Monday. I glanced at the clock. 15 minutes before our 3:15 meeting. I hesitated, then texted Mark. "Emergency. Hannah needs me to come over now. Could you start the deck? I promise I'll be back in 2 hours." He replied, "Fine." I bolted across town, kicking myself but desperate to help. I spent 3 hours hauling old furniture to the curb, wrangling Leo for a last walk so he wouldn't soil the empty apartment, and cajoling the landlord to accept payment via my app, since Hannah's bank card was in the previous roommate's name. By the time I got back to our studio, it was 7 p.m., well past our mutual cutoff. Mark was gone and the door was locked. My phone buzzed. "Mark, you missed our meeting. I had to do the entire pitch solo, and it bombed." Me. "I'm so sorry," I thought. "You'd be okay." Mark. "Obviously not. You choose your sister over us every time." Me. "This was a crisis. I helped her move into her own place." Mark. "You helped your sister, and I got left with a dumpster fire. I sat on the stoop, tears welling. Our office lights were still on. I debated calling the locksmith. Instead, I drove home, defeated." Picking up the pieces over the weekend, Mark stayed at his parents' house. He called once. "I feel like I'm the single parent, the employee, and the husband wrapped into one." I offered to hire a cleaner, to pay him back for extra hours he's logged covering for me. He balked. "It's not about money." On Monday, I wrote our museum client a profuse apology email asking if we could reschedule. They ghosted me. I suggested to Mark we see a counselor. He said he needed time. Meanwhile, Hannah's settled into her new apartment. Leo is no longer shredding our furniture, and our guest room is back to being a guest room. But my marriage and my business partnership feel fractured. So, Reddit. AETA, for dropping my business. Partner and husband to help my sister move out of her breakup. Should I have put my marriage and our studio's future before her needs? Or was it reasonable to step in for my family when she was at her lowest? I, 36F, have always prided myself on being the kind of daughter, sister, and friend who drops everything when someone needs me. So, when my best friend, Jenna, 37F, called me in tears one Sunday morning, 2 weeks before her wedding, panicked. Because her wedding planner had vanished and her venue deposit was lost, of course I dropped everything to help. What I didn't expect was that my husband, Eric, 38M, would treat it like a personal insult, and that our fight would end with me questioning whether I'd married a partner or a bystander. How it started, Jenna and I met in college and have been inseparable ever since. We survived dorm raids, breakups, cross-country moves, and job changes together. When she got engaged last fall, I was overjoyed, and of course agreed to be her maid of honor. As the months went by, I helped with dress shopping, DIY invitations, and the bachelorette at a lakeside cabin. Eric was supportive at first. He'd drive me to fittings, listen to my color palette rambles, and even paid for half my plane ticket when I flew to help with centerpieces. Then, 2 Sundays ago, Jenna's planner ghosted her. The deposit was non-refundable. The venue was suddenly double-booked, and Jenna called me in tears. "I don't know what to do. I can't let this ruin my wedding." I sat on my bed, phone pressed to my ear, as she sobbed. "I'll drop everything," I said without hesitation. "I'll get on the phone with venues right now." I spent that afternoon calling every venue within 50 miles. By evening, I'd tentatively rebooked her ceremony at a rustic barn, secured a smaller deposit, and negotiated a discount on catering. I emailed Jenna the good news and collapsed on the couch, proud of my whirlwind rescue. Eric's reaction. When Eric came home at 7 p.m., he found me in pajamas, hair in a messy bun, ring light and swatches strewn around the living room. "Hey," he said. "What's up?" Jenna's planner bailed, I said flatly. "I rebooked a new venue and renegotiated everything." I expected congratulations. Instead, he said, "You did what?" and looked around at the chaos. You've been on that phone all day. I've been trying to get in touch with your mum. She's worried you missed my aunt's memorial brunch. My heart sank. The memorial brunch was Saturday morning. Jenna's meltdown happened Sunday. There was no overlap. Mom calls me every week, I replied. I didn't even know there was a brunch. Aunt Carol died 3 months ago. He scowled. Your family is so last minute. You're always dropping me for them. I blinked. I dropped one afternoon for a college friend. Not my entire family. He flopped onto the couch. Do you realize I've been home with the kids all day? You said you'd pick up groceries. I glanced at the empty counter. He gestured at 3 empty cereal bowls, 2 sippy cups, and a stack of Lego pieces. I've been juggling toddler drama. Max had a tantrum. Fiona threw my phone in the toilet. I needed you. I rubbed my temples. I get it. I should have asked for help, but Jenna needed me. I've never let her down. He closed his eyes. Maybe if you spent less time with Jenna, you'd remember we exist. Tension builds. Over the next week, every little snag in my maid of honor duties felt like walking on eggshells at home. Eric started texting passive-aggressive reminders. Fridge is empty. Kids need clean clothes. Don't forget, dinner. I tried to balance both worlds, sneaking errands between work calls, coordinating with my sister to watch the kids for a few hours. But every time I left to help Jenna, I came home to a silent house and a long-faced husband. Wednesday. Night after a 10-hour conference call, I squeezed into my car to drive 2 hours to Jenna's final dress fitting. I got back at midnight to find the porch light off and the front door locked. I banged on the door. Eventually, Eric opened it in boxers, hair mussed. Where were you? He demanded. Inside, the thermostat showed 65 degrees and the kitchen light. Burned? Fitting ran late, I said. I texted you. He shook his head. Your phone was off. I was freezing. I couldn't find the spare key. He glared at me. You care more about being some perfect maid of honor than about our kids being cozy. I flinched. That's not fair. He crossed his arms. Is Jenna more important than me? I thought of the times I'd left work early to host, his work lunches, of the nights I'd mopped the floor while he streamed soccer. I care about both. It doesn't feel like it, he snapped, then slammed the door. I stood in the dark living room, arms shaking. The breaking point on Friday. Morning. I had to be at the new barn by 8 a.m. to oversee vendor deliveries. I choked down coffee, threw on a blazer, and kissed the kids goodbye. Eric was up, bleary-eyed. Don't be gone too long, he said without warmth. I exhaled. I'll check in. I hoped that would be enough. At the barn, the florist unloaded crates of peonies. The caterer set up chafing dishes. The DJ tested his speakers. I breathed easy. I'd done good work. Around noon, Jenna burst out of her bridal suite in a half-finished gown, tears streaming. You did it, she cried, hugging me so hard I almost toppled. I couldn't have. I teared up until I glanced at my phone. 30 missed calls from Eric and a voicemail. Call me ASAP, this is urgent. I dreaded what had gone wrong. When I called back, his voice was tight. The furnace broke. It's 50 degrees in the house. The kids are shivering. I called 3. Plumbers, they're booked. I knocked on the neighbors' doors to keep warm. His voice cracked. Why do you get to leave me in the cold? I just need you. My chest clenched. I was helping my best friend salvage her wedding, and in doing so, I'd left my husband and kids helpless. I'm so sorry, I said. I'll drive back. I can't leave you like that. Jenna looked at me, confusion dawning. Is everything okay? I forced a smile. Family emergency. I've got to go. She hugged me. Go. I understand. Race home. I sped home covering 2 hours in 90 minutes, heart-pounding. When I pulled into the driveway, I saw a plumber's van outside and my father-in-law, George, 64M, digging through the yard. I jumped out. What happened? George patted my shoulder. Furnace blew a valve, but we've got heat now. I'll stay overnight. He gave me a small, knowing smile. I sank against the car. Thank you. My phone buzzed. A text from Eric. Thank God you're here. I was so scared. I texted back, I'm here. I love you. I let out a shaky laugh. I really loved him, but I resented how he'd made me feel guilty for being needed by someone else. The showdown Saturday evening, after the wedding rehearsal dinner, I sat down with Eric in our quiet living room. The kids were at their grandparents'. Jenna was at her hotel, and the house finally felt calm. I turned to him. "Can we talk?" He nodded but didn't look at me. "I've been torn between two families, yours and mine," I began. "Jenna is like family to me. I couldn't abandon her when she was in crisis, but I also failed you and the kids." I paused. "I'm sorry," Eric sighed, leaning forward. "I get that Jenna needed you, but I felt like I was competing for your attention and losing." He rubbed his temples. "I get left holding the bag when you go solve someone else's problem." I swallowed. "I didn't set out to abandon you. I thought I could juggle both, but I was wrong." He looked at me, vulnerability flashing in his eyes. "I love that you're a loyal friend, but I need to know I come first when it's my turn." Tears pricked my eyes. "You always do. I got so caught up." He reached for my hand. "Let's promise to give each other a heads up when we need backup, and to recognize that there will be seasons. Sometimes it's our families, sometimes ours." I nodded, squeezing his hand back. "Deal. So Reddit, eater for flying home at the expense of my maid of honor duties? Was I wrong to prioritize my best friend's wedding emergency over my husband's and children's immediate needs? Or should Eric have anticipated that when I commit to someone, I commit fully? I, 38F, have always been close to my parents, my dad Rick and mom Susan, and when they celebrated their 50th wedding anniversary last year, my siblings and I decided to throw them a surprise party. My younger brother Ethan, 34M, who lives 2 hours away, coordinated with our older sister Maya, 40F, who lives abroad, to plan a weekend retreat at our childhood home. My husband Tom, 40M, and I have 2 kids, Lily, 8, and Max, 5, and I took charge of house prep, catering, decorations, and the evening's itinerary, a photo slideshow, speeches, and a vow renewal ceremony officiated by my dad's best friend. We booked a small local band, ordered a custom anniversary cake, and secretly invited all their friends and neighbors. I had everything under control, until Tom blew the whole thing. Weeks before the party, I told Tom only that we'd host my parents at our house for the weekend so I could bake my mom's favorite apple pie. I asked him to be home by Friday evening. I'd handle the rest. He agreed, though he grumbled that he had a big client meeting in Chicago that Thursday and really needed to take the red-eye back Friday morning. I booked him a late Thursday flight with a red-eye connecting through Detroit, non-refundable, but it still got him home by 7 a.m. Friday. I figured he could crash during the day while I did the finishing touches. On Tuesday afternoon, Tom came home from work early. He looked stressed. "I've got to move my flight back to Wednesday," he said. "My client insists we do a site visit Friday morning." I sighed. "But that'll land you here Wednesday afternoon. We'll still have a day for prep." He shook his head. "It's the same problem. I'll lose Wednesday too, and I can't miss that meeting." I tried to appeal to him. "I need you Friday. My parents are driving up from St. Louis. We..." "Agreed." He pinched the bridge of his nose. "All right, but I need to leave Saturday morning for another conference. I'll be in and out. Don't expect me for the weekend." I swallowed my irritation. My parents' anniversary was a once-in-a-lifetime event. I bit my tongue, nodded, and said, "Okay, I'll manage." Inside, I felt my chest tighten. My siblings and I had poured months into planning, not just a cake and balloons, but hiring a photographer, making a bespoke video montage, arranging flower deliveries, and even building a small outdoor gazebo where they'd renew their vows. I desperately needed Tom there to help run kids, greet guests, and share host duties. But I let it go. The accidental spoiler Wednesday afternoon, I was setting up the backyard when Tom burst in. He looked flustered and held his phone out. "Your dad just texted me," he said. "He says, looking forward to a low-key dinner here Friday." My heart sank. I snatched the phone. "What? Send him the address." He tapped the reply. "Your sister's wedding invites for their weekend are out. They already shared our save the date." I ran through what had happened. He admitted he'd forwarded a generic calendar invite he'd received, labeled simply Family Dinner May 15, to his dad's group chat, thinking nothing of it. In seconds, Dad assumed that was the anniversary dinner. All our meticulous planning reduced to low-key dinner. I felt bile rise. "Do you have any idea how much work went into this?" I hissed. "This was supposed to be a surprise." He frowned. "I didn't think you'd hide it." It sounded like a family dinner. I closed my eyes. You can fix this. Call every guest, tell them the real date and plan. He sighed. That's on you. I'm swamped with work. He turned and left. Panic and damage control. I spent the next 48 hours frantically rewriting invites, apologizing to caterers for the date change, and begging our old neighbors not to bail because it was just a family dinner. I roped Ethan into painting new chalkboard signs and begged the band to arrive early for setup. Maya scrambled to expedite the video files. I let my temper near my kids, snapping at Lily when she spilled glitter on the deck and cutting Max's TV time when he refused to nap. Tom checked in only once late Thursday night. I booked a private conference room at the Marriott for Friday morning. I'll drop off the kids with you and be there by noon. I glared at the text. You're supposed to be here at 8 a.m. to help with the gazebo. He replied, I'll do what I can. By Friday morning, the house looked like a wedding expo. White drapes, twinkling fairy lights, framed photos on every surface. My parents arrived at 9 a.m. for breakfast and were ushered straight to the guest suite, oblivious to the outdoor setup happening behind closed doors. Tom strolled in at 11:30, lugging briefcases. He surveyed the scene and remarked, Wow, a lot here. I deadpanned, You think? He avoided my gaze. I've got to leave at 4 p.m. for that conference. I clenched my jaw. The ribbon cutting for their vow renewal is at 5:30. He rubbed his temples. Find someone else to handle it. I can't miss this site visit. I froze. The site visit was his job, but this was my parents'. I felt tears sting. I've done everything so you can be here, and you still choose work over them, over me. He stood up. I'm going. I can't help it. He stormed off to the home office. The party unfolds. I pivoted into hostess mode. I greeted guests, corralled the wedding band to test mics, and handed my mom her morning coffee while plastering on a smile. At 2 p.m., outside under the gazebo, my dad struggled to remove his overcoat. I cheered him on. Ready for round 2? He laughed, ruffled my hair, and gave me a squeeze that both warmed and broke my heart. The ceremony was beautiful. My niece read a poem. Ethan gave a toast baking anecdotes from childhood. Maya FaceTimed in from London with a pre-recorded speech. My mom's eyes glistened. My dad's voice cracked at, for richer or poorer. I thought to myself, now if only Tom were here. But my brother Tom, not my husband, picked up the slack. He marched down the aisle at 4:45 p.m. wearing a borrowed blazer, holding my husband's phone on speaker so Tom could say a few words. We all heard him mumble, Congrats, Mom and Dad, I'm proud of you, sorry I can't be there. My mom blew him a kiss. My dad chuckled and said, He's here in spirit. I felt a mix of gratitude for my family stepping up and simmering, rage at my husband. He'd effectively missed both halves of the celebration. After the vows, the reception inside looked stunning. Long banquet tables with candles in mason jars, place cards calligraphed with our parents' wedding date, a dessert bar with homemade pies and cupcakes. I welcomed guests, posed for photos, and finally sat at the head table next to my mom squeezing her hand. But an empty seat beside me, Tom's place, gaped. At 6:30 p.m., the band played our parents' song, Forever Young, and they had their first dance. My dad extended a hand to my mom and said, May we be as silly in another 50 years. She leaned in and whispered, I love you. I felt a lump in my throat. I scanned the room. Tom was at the bar texting, nursing a beer. Confrontation and fallout. As the band broke into a classic rock cover, my father tapped me on the shoulder. Where's your husband? He asked quietly. I swallowed. He had to work. He's on site. At the conference now. Dad frowned. You married 2 days ago or 15 years ago? This was planned. I shook my head. He's decided his work comes first. I rushed outside to find Tom texting under the porch light. I confronted him. You missed everything. You were too busy for my parents. He looked up, tired. I was following through on major commitments. Why is this so personal? I stepped closer. Because these are my parents, the ones who raised me, who hosted you countless times. You didn't even try. He sighed. I tried. I rearranged flights. It still didn't work. I spat back. You didn't try. You cancelled completely. He set his beer down. I can't be in 2 places. I chose work. The word chose hit me like a slap. You chose work over my family, over me. We're supposed to be a team. He ran a hand through his hair. You're being dramatic. It's one weekend. I laughed bitterly. One weekend that meant the world to them. To me, you were nowhere. I turned and stormed back into the crowd. I spent the rest of the evening plastered to my parents, dancing with them, laughing but feeling hollow. Every time I saw Tom dipping in and out of the party, I remembered his blank face when I asked for help. Aftermath, when the last guests left, around midnight, I found Tom packing his laptop in the living room. I'm heading back to the hotel, he said. I folded my arms. You're leaving? He avoided eye contact. I have to. Conference calls at dawn. I nodded slowly. Okay. Then I guess we're done here. He paused. What does that mean? I took a breath. I need you to understand that you hurt me, hurt my family. If you can't make time for my parents' milestone, I don't know where we go from here. He looked pained. I'm sorry. It felt hollow. The next morning, I packed the leftover cake for my siblings and took the kids to our parents' house. Tom didn't come. He sent a text. Sorry I missed breakfast. See you tonight. My mom hugged me and said, Sweetie, he'll come around. He just needed to handle work. But I wasn't so sure. So Reddit ATA for expecting my husband to put my parents' 50th anniversary above his work obligations. Was I unreasonable to get angry when he missed the bulk of the celebration? Or is it fair to wonder whether he values our family and me at all if he can't rearrange a conference for such a special weekend?